There have been several top-notch boss fights this year, some difficult and others offering incredible catharsis for key story moments. However, there have also been some disappointments, from interesting mechanics falling flat to annoying gameplay that feels like a chore. Some final bosses also end up way too easy, making you sit there and wonder, that's it? Before moving on, here are 10 of the most disappointing boss fights of 2023 and what made them stand out in the worst ways possible. Fang, Trip Story, Sonic Superstars. It's almost hilarious how Sonic Superstars has not one, not two, but 3 terrible final bosses. Fang in Trip's story narrowly manages to win out by sheer virtue of annoyance, which is saying something given how unnecessarily challenging her playthrough feels. This fight is long, with severe waiting periods between each attack, and some insta-killing you just because it would be funny. The lack of any checkpoint in the second phase is also especially excruciating. It isn't the end of the game, as there's the true final boss to deal with, but it's a disappointing conclusion to Trip's story all the same. Zhang Rhang, Wolong Fallen Dynasty. On the surface, Zhang Rhang's shtick is interesting as he continuously summons clones. The problem? You have to keep killing them, building up spirit damage until he's staggered for a fatal strike. So you're running around, smacking clones, trying to find the right one, getting pelted with magic from this and that. Guan Yu and Cao Cao also assist during this fight, further adding to the visual mess and chaos. The worst part, once you've staggered him and dealt a fatal strike, you must go through the whole process again. It's one of those ideas that seems unique on paper but ends up being extremely tedious in practice. Hunter and Emissary, Starfield.
I guess I shouldn't be too surprised you made it this far. Serves me right for not being convincing enough.
Depending on your decisions, you have to fight one or both of these entities in the finale of Starfield. However, outside of their gimmick, all of 3 of you teleporting across different universes and areas, the fight's mechanics are pretty non-existent. All you do is follow and shoot, then you get teleported. Then follow and shoot some more in a cave against them and alternate versions of your companions. Of course, the question arises, what could the team possibly have done differently? Maybe a space battle against the starborn ships? It's hard to say, but this wasn't it. At least you can't skip the fight with enough persuasion.
The artifacts unlock the secret of interstellar travel at the cost of Earth.
Corrupted Parade Master, Lies of P. Given the sheer range of bosses in Lies of P, it's weird fighting one with several of your options temporarily removed. Nevertheless, surely there would be an interesting twist to fighting a corrupted version of the final boss, aside from the danger of decay. Well, not really. Most of his attacks are similar, and all you have to do is dodge through most of them. Back off when it starts crawling on the ground, and repeat. Not the worst fight ever, but pretty rote, despite his heavily altered appearance. Nora, Atomic Heart, Annihilation Instinct. The first story DLC for Atomic Heart is pretty underwhelming, with its final boss easily the capstone to all of the disappointment. After the twins arrive to save P3, you must create a new schematic to stop Nora's madness. It amounts to inserting the mechanical balls in the correct configuration on the floor, taken from fighting a familiar boss that keeps regenerating. The sheer amount of manufactured tension belies how dull it is, despite the puzzle-solving approach, and the fight ends in a whimper. The worst part is that even after a relatively happy ending, the conclusion teases more annoyance for P3. Ahriman the Destroyer, Ghost Runner 2. As the first boss of One More Level's sequel, Ahriman is a solid test of the game's combat and movement. The problem is that's pretty much all he is. Having such a cool-looking appearance and sword, you would think there would be something more to him after his defeat. Alas, he commits seppuku, and that's it. No coming back later in some big twist or anything like that. Would I have been less disappointed if he wasn't called the Destroyer? Probably. He's pretty lame, but thankfully the rest more than pick up the slack and offered far better fights. Scorpion and Nitara, Invasions, Mortal Kombat 1. After the insanity of Story Mode's final battle, which admittedly ends in a bit of a disappointing fight, there was the opportunity to do something special with Invasions. With all the different mechanics, it could have made its bosses special, right? Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and both Scorpion and Nitara, the bosses of Season 1 and 2, are relatively boring. Of course, it also doesn't help that Invasions has no impact on the overall canon, such as it is after 2 reboots. While this is likely due to the seasonal model, it also means there's no stakes, and the lasting impact on their deaths is pretty much moot. Narg Shazan, the Lord of the Rings, Return to Moria. It's bad enough that Return to Moria has the issues it does, but there is a kind of charm throughout as you venture to the final boss. The Balrog isn't your final challenge. Instead, it's Narg Shazan, a dragon. Additional prep and endgame armor and weapons are a given, especially when playing solo. But she quickly falls after just a few hits. It seems to be an issue that will be fixed sooner or later. However, for those who have been playing on PC since October, it's a letdown. DJ Cyber, Bomb Rush Cyberfunk. Finally, you get to fight against DJ Cyber after all the cryptic nonsense, conspiracies, and mysteries. Unfortunately, the first phase involves meleeing his projectiles back at him as his spider bot jumps around. The second involves dodging explosives that he leaves on the ground and then returning his projectiles. Then you hit him with one last melee and that's it. Game over. Truly a weak way to end the game, especially considering the final battles in the Jet Set radio games were so hype. Ruiner, Lords of the Fallen. Ruiner is this hulking beast of a warrior with a crazy look and fire magic that can build Ignite. He seems virtually impassable, until you start dodging his attacks. As agile as Ruiner can be, some attacks are insanely telegraphed, leaving him open for a heavy attack that knocks off a sizable chunk of his health. Pair that with radiant damage and take him out in no time, when the lead up to a boss with all the enemies you have to deal with is considered more tedious than the actual boss. You know there's a problem.
And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request: we upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.